And a lot of us we don't really learn skills beyond that. We just sort of realize, well, like if I throw a tantrum, this isn't going to go well, so I'll just hunker down. Again, we develop strategies, coping strategies. We don't develop skills by and large. Certainly not for intimate relationships.
Let's impact some today. I think we're going to do a great job.
What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man podcast. First, thank you for listening. And just really quick, I wanted to make sure I warned you about some explicit content that's included in this episode. I still think it's a message that you need to hear, so I'm happy to share it, but just wanted to give you a heads up. You might find some of the language offensive. And if you are sensitive to that, I won't take offense if you decide to skip it. If not, I think you'd really enjoy the content. So thank you for your support and enjoy the episode.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man podcast, where we are here to connect men in pursuit of their potential. I encourage you to join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, I want to encourage you to hit that like button, share this podcast, and of course, subscribe so you can get a new episode each and every single week. And for the fellas out there watching, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. It's a community of men where you can find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a brotherhood of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and elevate their capacity for life. I'm excited because we're getting some wind in our sails today from my guest, who is a former U.S. Air Force captain, internationally renowned author, relationship coach, and men's coach. First, thank you for your service, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Brian Reeves joining us out of the West Coast. Hey, Brian.
What's up, Ted? Thanks, man. I'm really honored to be here today. Appreciate it.
Likewise, man. And it's great to have you on. And I know I mentioned some of the titles, the current positions, but I feel as though that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So I just want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience in your own words, speak directly to the folks that are watching, and then we can hop into our conversation from there, man.
Yeah. That's just the window dressing, the details, the biofacts. Well, man, I just turned 50 this year, so I'm in many ways entering the second half of life. The first 50 years, wow. I did go through the military. I've been through, the way I like to just the short story is, I've been through just multiple dark nights of the soul. I've had my ass handed to me over and over again. I've, especially in intimate relationships. And, I'm for the last decade, 12 years, I've been coaching men and women, although I'm focusing more on men the last couple of years, and couples as well. I've coached couples and written a couple books, and I'm married for 9 years. Our anniversary was just yesterday, actually. And,
nice. Happy anniversary.
I feel like I've thank you very much. Thank you. And I've my wife and I we're going through a difficult season the last few years. Just a lot of loss and a lot of upheaval and change, and so it's interesting. You use the word elevate in your intro, right? We elevate each other, and I have a program that I work with men for a year called Elevate, and one of the things that we talk a lot about, though, is before we can elevate, we must first descend and do some underworld work, descent work. And as I was and I bring that up right now just because, man, I'm in some descent work right now. There's just, I shared with you before we started recording that life is just kicking me in the balls recently, just circumstances, and so I'm in some descent, shadow revealing work here, and knowing, though, that there's, everything is just a season, and hopeful, excited for the season to come. So anyway, man, that's me behind the window dressing at the moment.
Yeah.
A little snapshot.
Well, I appreciate the authenticity, man, and honestly, I'd love to just meet you there and start with the kick in the
Mm,
balls because I think a lot of
mm,
us, unfortunately, know what that feels like. I'm not just talking physically, but I'm talking metaphorically and just
yeah,
emotionally, and just you
yeah.
wake up in the morning and you're like, all right, crap, it already started. Um,
Uh-huh.
it's hard times even for us just to be on the podcast, right? And I wanna
Mm,
first acknowledge your authenticity from us meeting, and a shirt I'm wearing, actually, you can't really see it on, the camera, I just pulled it up for anybody on YouTube. It says hashtag you good, question mark.
mm,
And the idea behind the shirt, and as we come into November, which this episode will likely be out in November, Men's Mental Health Month,
mm,
November and June,
mm,
I donate all profits from the shirt to, uh,
mm,
men's nonprofits. So
mm,
the reason behind that is because the "You Good" shirt is we don't ask each other enough if we're good, right?
mm.
So it's encouraging men to ask each other, "Hey, man, are you good?" But the second
Yeah,
half of that, and what I want to acknowledge you for, is most of us don't answer honestly. Like if someone says, "Hey, man, are you
right.
good?" We're like, "Yeah, I'm straight. Don't worry about me. I'm all
Fine.
right." And we just kind of white
Mhm.
knuckle it. But you were very
Yep.
transparent, and you're like, "Man, I'm getting kicked in the nuts." So, I'd love to
Yeah.
meet you where you're at, man, and talk about the
Yeah.
descent and the inner work.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. It's look, doing the kind of work that I do, uh, you know, I often wonder when people ask me, what do you do? It's a hard question to answer in a way because I can say, okay, I'm a men's coach, I'm an author, but it just sound those words always ring so hollow to me. The thing that I think I really pride myself on and really get excited about is like I help men have real fucking conversations. Help men
Yeah.
talk about the things that we are some often literally dying to talk about. And I mean that's what you're doing here with this podcast, the Modern Man podcast, having real conversations. And what comes with that though is I've got to be willing to also have the real fucking conversations that I need to have as well. I can't ha- be going through life and be in a heavy season and then come onto a podcast and be like, yo, I'm crushing it, man. Everything's just fantastic. I'm fine. Look at all these amazing things I'm doing. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, come work with like, oh man, I'm too old for that shit, Ted. It's like,
Mhm.
uh, I just want to be real in the world. Um, and I think it's really important because I think a lot of us men, we get this idea that I should I got to figure life out and then everything should just be rosy from there. Once I get the wife or the spouse and the job and the money and the car and the home and the kids and I should just be golden. I shouldn't have any more problems. And that ain't how it works. It's like life is cyclical, it's seasonal. There are summer seasons and there are winter seasons and there are storms. And so I think the I think what's just of vital importance, and I think your show again is a really great place to model having real conversations. And
Mhm.
so um I'm going through a heavy season in life. The pandemic really triggered off of a series of events when things shut down that just took a lot of milestones away from my wife and I that it's been just really challenging to navigate. And um, man, some days are still there's been a lot of grief in our journey, a lot of loss, and I know that if I try to just keep that in and bear it by myself,
Mhm.
I'll fucking make life miserable for myself and everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on those that didn't cut you. Uh, and
Great,
we
that's right.
continue
I
to
love that.
walk
Yeah,
through life like that. And
yeah.
and you even mentioned about getting the house, the wife, the kids, and all this and acquiring it all. But people, I mean, especially us guys, we don't realize it's harder to maintain than it is to gain. I could I could
Mm,
show up all pretty and get the job. I can
mhm,
crush the
mm,
interview, but then they're gonna
right.
expect me to deliver and perform,
Yeah,
right? Congratulations, you're CEO. It's like great. Like
exactly.
now you got to make
Yeah.
choices. And those choices will either work out or not work out. And then you will get scored on that moving forward. So it's harder to
That's right.
maintain than it is to gain. But so many of us do the opposite. We'll gain and then we'll ease up
Mhm.
and then wonder why
That's
it
right.
won't maintain.
That's really, really great insight. We're judged on our performance in pretty much all domains, at least, and we believe that it's our performance that sets our value and our worth. And not that there isn't value in performing and that it isn't important that we then show up and perform, but you know, when we in a moment of just fuck, when life is just showing up in ways that are really challenging, who has our back? You know, Normally us men buy into the story because it's sold to us early that nobody has your back. You're on your own. Man up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't show weakness. Don't never let them see you sweat. Remember that commercial many years ago? Never let them see you sweat. It was a
Yeah.
deodorant commercial back in like the 80s or 90s. I don't remember, but like just hold it together, right? Again, that's the story. Nobody has your back. And that story runs deep for most men. I mean, it still runs deep in me. And I got so much support around me. I mean, I've got a beautiful, powerful, loving, strong, visionary men around me. And still
Mhm.
life kicks me in the nuts sometimes. And if I don't have those resources of men around me, trusting that if all goes to hell, I know people got my back.
Yeah.
Whew. And a lot of men don't have that,
Yeah.
as you know,
Yeah.
right?
What
So,
you just did there, that was huge too, is you just took a deep breath, man. A lot of men, we don't breathe.
yeah. Yeah. I'll take another one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
We need it.
that's a life-saving practice, just the pause and the breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
On days like a day where you're getting kicked in the nuts, maybe a day like today, for anyone listening who might be like, dude, same. What are some of the strategies, actions you take to
yeah,
help turn that ship around? And it doesn't have to be an immediate fix, right? I don't want to sell a
yeah,
placebo
of
pill to the guys listening. It's not like, oh, do
course.
this, you'll feel great by noon. But it's like, okay, what are the things that help you get back faster than you normally would?
One of the things that we men do a lot, and I've done it for most of my life, is we bypass the grief. We bypass the sadness. We bypass whatever we're actually going through to try to get to relief as soon as possible. We may distract ourselves with porn, with work, with TV, with sports, with drinking, with whatever. We'll distract ourselves in a million ways to not face what's really happening in the moment. And so one of the things that's really vitally important for me is to just look at the thing in the face, whatever is happening in this moment, and just own, for example, yeah, I'm having a really hard time right now. Right?
Mhm.
Not bypass it, not pretend it's different, not pretend everything's rosy and everything's fine. I mean, I think that's the very first thing is just acknowledging, yeah, this is hard for me right now. This is really fucking hard. And acknowledging to myself, first off, right? And then being able to also have another person. And for some guys, that might just be a therapist or a coach. You got to be careful too, like with your spouse. Sometimes your spouse isn't able to hold. And I think this is what challenges a lot of men too. If we're in relationships, we think my partner can't hold this, and probably have evidence, of partners not being able to hold. I'm going through something, and my partner's gonna freak out and turn it into something that isn't helpful, and I never wanted it to turn into that, and what the fuck. And so we learn to shut down again and just hold it in. And so, we got to have what I call a trustable friend or acquaintance or coach or therapist or someone that we know we can just share this with, and they'll just be able to be with us in it. Like, dude, that I get you, man. I hear you. I see you. It does fucking suck. And they can say, look, you're going to get through this. They can give us the coaching, or the support, but not in a bypassy way. Not in a, dude, that ain't nothing. Don't worry. Do you know my problems? Or, don't be a pussy, or
Mhm.
don't, get over that. That's not helpful. but that's what most men get. It's what most men do. It's what most men get is that, don't be a pussy. That's just the old story again, man. Man up. So step
Yeah.
number one, acknowledge to myself, this is hard. I'm having a hard time right now. I'm feeling, part of that is, what am I feeling? I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling sad. I mean, when we really get underneath it, underneath most anger is probably a lot of sadness.
Mhm.
A lot of sadness. The world ain't showing up in the way that I wish it was. And for a lot of men, the first response is anger. But what's underneath it is deep sadness, so much loss and grief. And I mean, it's just, so that's the first, let's just acknowledge that it's hard. And the second piece is just, what am I feeling? What am I carrying? Sadness or anger or just however, right? And then have someone to be able to share that with. I mean, if nothing else, like that is a
Mhm.
is essential. And to your point, it ain't all of a sudden going to just necessarily turn it around and everything's going to be great and rosy, but at least now I'm not carrying it by myself, and I'm not dumping my whatever, bullshit, angsty crap on the other people. And even if I do that a little bit, because it's going to spill, it's going to happen sometimes. Nobody does this perfectly. Like, okay, whew, and boy, that breath, I come back to that a lot, and so, but anyway, that's I think that's just round one of being able to
Yeah.
to be resilient and move through life without it destroying us when it's heavy.
Yeah, and it's so important
You know,
to point out what you said there about your trusted network or those people close to you, because when we speak vulnerability, or one of the values of the modern man is strength and vulnerability. I almost have to put a disclaimer like, whoa, 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 guys, this doesn't mean go to the mountaintop or do an IG live with tears in your
mhm.
eyes, sharing your truth.
Yeah,
No,
right.
no, no, no. This is, you know, you have a couple guys who you've trusted, who've earned that trust through consistent relationship, brotherhood. Maybe they've been there in times of need, right? It's the who would you call if you were 150 miles away and your wife needed someone to pick them up really quick to go to the emergency room, right?
Yeah,
Those guys,
yeah,
those
yeah.
guys that you would call to get something done for the thing you worry about and care about the most. And not everybody just gets that, but just that disclaimer and that caveat. When we talk vulnerability, I'm not talking about crying on the camera and putting yourself out there for the world. No, it's you have your group who know who you are and will stand there in community with you and get wet in the storm and get rained on just to stand there with you, because even though it doesn't solve the problem, at least you're not alone.
Yeah, real vulnerability is it's not marketing, and it's not a performance. It's and look, I'm not inherently opposed to being vulnerable. uh Social media, it's a strange world we live in these days, but having, I talk about like containers are
Mhm.
so important, and social media is a shitty container for vulnerability and for processing. It's a shitty container because it's so leaky, and there's so many people are going to have their own opinions about what you're expressing and going through. Like, it's just, you can do that, but it just becomes something bizarre and strange, and whereas if you're with a trusted friend, or again, I'm all for therapy, for coaches, for and look, there's good therapists and bad ones. There's good coaches and bad ones, and in the same way that there's good friends and friends that maybe aren't the trustable, that you shouldn't go to with your vulnerabilities. But just having a strong container where you can go, dude, I'm fucking going through it right now, and I just need to just get it off my chest, and having someone say, go for it, whatever you got. I'm here. I witness you. I see you.
Mhm.
Whatever you're going through is okay. I'm here. Let's go. And I mean, that alone, Ted, when men come into my various coaching programs, and I do right now, I do specifically a 6 month container around relationship coaching, like men that are in relationship and they're struggling in relationship and want support in their relationship to I call it elevate your relationship, men that really want to work on their relationship. We have a
Yeah.
6-month container for that. And then I have a year-long, 12-month, small, intimate 10 men group that I run every year called this year's Elevate 2025. When men come in and we focus on creating a strong container, a container of respect, a container of, we're not here to fix each other's problems. We're here to support each other. We're here to
Hmm.
witness each other. We are here to challenge each other. And we're also here to celebrate each other. What we're not here to do is fix each other, give advice to each other, dismiss each other's experiences, put down each other's experiences or beliefs or tell each other to get over it. None of that. Like we're creating a strong, respectful container. The way I like to say it is it's both safe. It's safe so that we can get dangerous, right?
Mm.
It's we create a
Yeah.
safe container so that inside of that safety, men can let their guard down, which gets a little dangerous. We can, allow ourselves to be challenged and challenge each other again in respectful, non-dismissive ways. Like one of the first things that men say when they come into a container like that is, "Holy moly, it feels so good to know I'm not alone in what I'm going through."
Yeah.
Like that, I don't
Yeah.
care. Almost whatever else happens inside of that kind of dynamic, that alone, there's this beautiful quote by, I can't remember which poet or I can't remember who said this, but it's not the load you're carrying that breaks you down. It's the way that you carry it, right? It's not the load that
Hmm.
breaks you down. It's the way that you're carrying it. And when we men start to get in these kinds of conversations with each other, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not carrying this alone. That, even if you don't get a so called solution to whatever problem you think you're facing, just that alone can help like that breath that I take a lot. Oh, that's a breath of knowing, hey man, life's got my back. I got
Hmm.
I got people, I got, life has my back. I'm not doing this all by myself. So I can take that breath. Oh, that alone, man, opens up possibilities that aren't available when I'm just like
Yeah.
hunkered down, carrying the load and just trying to survive and not die.
Yeah, I interpret it you mentioned the container, and I don't know why the image of a trampoline comes into mind, and what I mean by that is
Interesting. Say
you
more
see
about that.
a trampoline in the backyard. You can get on it and you could jump a little bit, but if you don't put the netting and the proper protection
Uh,
around the trampoline, you can
mm,
only jump so high. But when
uh,
you have the
uh,
netting in place, jump, do the flips, do whatever, do everything you want to your fullest ability because the
uh,
nets are there to catch you if you start
interesting.
flipping there, you jumping out of control, right? When you mentioned the container is there not to keep it safe, but it's so we can be dangerous. So we can
Exactly.
get dangerous, right? And that's what you're
Exactly.
allowing the men to do in that space is jump high.
Exactly.
We're 20 minutes in and I've yet to get to my notes, by the way. Just for the folks
Okay.
listening. This has been
That's how
this
we
is
go.
fantastic. Rocking and rolling. You're rocking and rolling,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I will say the first question I wrote down of transitioning from a US Air Force captain to an
Mm,
internationally renowned relationships coach. I imagine
mm.
that wasn't just you get back to the States and you said, I'm going to do this. I imagine
Oh
there
my
was a
God.
transition and a process through that. So, what was the story and how that came about?
Oh man. Well, that would be the subject of a of a multi-season Netflix special. We'd have to do at least 4 or 5 seasons to tell that whole story. But long story short, after the military at 20, I got out at 26, been in for 10 years. I was a captain. I was very educated, had a master's degree in human relations. You know, I, I had just so much going for me. But Ted, I absolutely sucked at relationships with women. I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't know that. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was clueless. And so, I just one bad relationship after another. I mean, with good women, just clueless Brian. And by the way, these women weren't that much more clued in than I was. uh, fast forward 10 years, I'm 36 and I'm just like tired of sucking at relationships and just like, I can't be destined to suck at this for the rest of my life. And that's when I threw myself into studying relationships, studying intimacy. That was 14 years ago. And over the next couple of years, I just was like, working with different teachers, going to workshops, just and again, leading up to this, Ted, I had a master's degree in human relations, and I sucked at relations with women anyway. So, you know, it's like that was a huge gap in my not just college education, but life education. So I filled in that gap, man. And then I started, probably about 11, 12 years ago, started actually working with couples that were likewise struggling. I started blogging. I was blogging about it, writing about it, and my blogs were really catching fire. I wrote an article called "Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her" that just in 2015 that just exploded across the planet, man. I mean, a million people a day were reading that blog, and
Nice.
I turned that into a book of the same name, "Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her." And yeah, man. I mean, that just kind of brought me into coaching and to just serving other people, and to, one of the things that I often say about coaching is you don't have to be a master at the thing you're coaching. You just got to be a little further down the path than the
Mm,
people coming up behind you, and you know I don't hold myself out as a master. I'm not a master even at relationships, even though I've studied it. I work with couples, man. I make mistakes every day. um
yeah.
but what we learn in relationships is that it's okay to be messy, and the magic is in the repair, not getting it perfect.
Mm,
The magic is in making mistakes and then repairing those mistakes. And again,
yeah.
I think a lot of us men, and I certainly bought into it, believe that we're not supposed to make mistakes. It's not okay to make mistakes. I got to get this perfect. And there's a lot of guard and defensiveness that comes up when our partner might be upset about something, and we think, well, oh, she thinks I made a mistake, and nah, fuck that. I didn't make a mistake. Anyway,
Yeah.
on and on and on. So, yeah, man. I mean, that's a long story, still a little bit long, but way shorter than I might otherwise tell it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
We'll get the
that's what I do
Netflix
full
pilot.
time. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Get the pilot
yeah.
recorded here
The
shortly
outline
so
for the
we can
pilot.
get the first
Yeah,
2 seasons greenlit. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic, and it's amazing how you mentioned the article and how that echoes and just blows up. Mainly because I would imagine it resonated with so many people who were
yeah,
reading it. Choose her
yeah,
every day or leave her.
yeah,
The title is on point. I will say
yeah.
before we were introduced, I'd never saw your article. And I only say
Mhm.
that not to be mean, but just to reference in terms of the personal connection I feel to your article
Mm.
is
Yeah.
the vows I said to my wife, the last words of my vows were, I choose you, baby, not just today, but
Mm,
for all the days I have left and beyond.
mm, mhm.
And that was a very, obviously, when you're writing your vows, it's a very intentional uh,
Yeah.
form of words and documents, and no words going to waste, and every word has impactful meaning. So the I choose you, not just today, but for all the days I have left, was really, really important and deeply resonates with me personally.
Yeah.
Talk about the origin of that article, the book as well, and why you think it resonated with so many people.
Yeah. Well, it was born of a sudden realization that actually came through working with a client who, as a coach, I learned so much in working with people. It's a never ending journey of my own awakening and realizations. But through working with a couple, I realized, holy shit. Yeah, I was in relationships in the past saying that with my words saying I love you and let's be boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. But my body, like energetically, I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And th- it never occurred to me that my partners might feel that. And that's why, you know, that's why There was always a lot of anger and chaos and conflict, and which, by the way, would only just further cause me to be 1 foot out. It'd be like, okay, now it's a foot and a thigh and half a hip. I'm like, they could feel that shit. And so it was just a revelation that, the first line of that essay is, I spent 5 years hurting a good woman by staying with her, but never fully choosing her. Right? What I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, it was a
And share
revelation.
already.
It was a revelation to me, because it was just so easy to blame her for the chaos of our relationship. And not that she's totally innocent, of course not. But what I hadn't seen was my kind of energetic, again, 1 foot in, 1 foot outness. Like, I'm here so long as, you behave a certain way, so long as you touch me a certain way, so long as don't make my life difficult.
Mhm.
And man, seeing that again was just one of those moments of, oh my God, okay, I can never do that again. If I want to have a healthy relationship, I either have to be clear with the woman that I am not all in, or if I say I'm all in, I need to figure out what are the ways in which I might not be all in. And then I need to work at that to pull that back
Mm.
in. That part of me that might want to escape, might want to, not be responsible, not show up. Nope. I need to look at that, take ownership of it, and again, choose her every day or leave, because it's torture otherwise for
Mhm.
everybody, by the way, not just for my partner, but it's torture for me too.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals.
Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. Yeah. You mentioned the and it's so funny because we can have all the nice words and I have an older sister. We'll talk, and sometimes I could say, okay, words are nice, but actions speak so much louder than words, right? Or
Yeah.
how many times we've been in a relationship, and as you mentioned, I'm saying this, but my behavior is X. And though we
Yeah.
think they can't tell, typically it's that disconnect, the disconnect of words and actions that leads to misunderstandings and miscommunications, which can then lead to conflict. So, leaning into the conflict side of things, for anyone listening, watching, um, who believes to themselves, they say, "Well, I'm all in. I'm pot committed." Uh, Yet we do have disagreements. We do have these conflicts that are reoccurring. Perhaps the same conflict every few months comes back up. Um, how can men navigate that, and how can we show up better in the conflicts or pay more attention to what they might be trying to tell us?
It's a great question. Really great question. Well, again, as I said earlier, I think it's important that we men make space for relationships to be messy, and we make space for there to be conflict. I think a lot of us tend to think that conflict is a sign that something's wrong, or the relationship might not be the right relationship for me. And look, it's quite possible that the relationship you might be genuinely incompatible with a person you're partnered with. That's very, very possible. But often there's more to explore first before we make that conclusion just based on, this thing going so well, this, we fight too much, you know that tends to be, by the way, one of the top two complaints that men have in a relationship is number one, there's too much fighting. That's
Mm,
it. Like, women don't, that's not women's top complaint. This is research done by the Gottman Institute, who's been studying couples for decades, right? The top two complaints of men is there's too much fighting and there's not enough sex, right? Not enough physical affection, touch, sex. And so just know that that's just a thing that we men tend to believe in and struggle with. A lot of us men, we tend to feel trapped by conflict, trapped, like we can't solve the problems of the relationship. And that's incredibly frustrating. As men, again, we're judged on performance. And if I can't, you go to your work, if you can't solve the problems that your job is giving you, you're fired.
Yep.
You're fired. You're done. Well, we carry that same mentality into the relationship. If I can't solve the problems of the relationship, I mean, she's gonna fire me, or I'll just fire myself because I don't want to be incompetent. That's no fun. That doesn't feel good in my
Hmm.
body, right? And we don't realize though that same mentality doesn't work in relationships. We can't go into relationship challenges thinking, all right, there's a problem here, let's just solve it. And actually, I think most men will have experienced that actually just makes it worse. You feel me?
Oh yeah.
That's the laughter of knowing, Ted, of
Hmm.
experience, personal experience, painful
Yeah, yeah.
experience. Yeah. So that's what I say. First, just let it be messy. Now, I will say, get some skills. Navigating conflict well is a skill. It's not something we're innately born with. Are you kidding me? As babies, we're fucking monsters. We have no conflict skills. It's my way or the highway. It's give me what I want, or I'm going to throw a tantrum. And a lot of us we don't really learn skills beyond that. We just sort of realize, well, like if I throw a tantrum, I'm gonna this isn't going to go well, so I'll just hunker down. Again, we just we develop strategies, coping strategies. We don't develop skills by and
Mm,
large, certainly not for intimate relationships. So learn some skills. I mean, that's what I teach in my Elevate Your Relationship coaching program, is skills. How to ask questions in ways that open her heart, rather than collapse her, cause her to contract and withdraw, right? How to ask powerful curiosity questions, how to have boundaries, how to speak into existence boundaries in ways that are respectful. Again, we were talking about containers earlier. Our relationship needs containers too. For us to, it's like we have to learn how to create safety. Only then can we, get a little dangerous.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
relationships need safety too. Both of us, both partners need those. Where are the boundaries so that I can go ahead and bounce without getting thrown off of this trampoline,
Hmm.
right? That's a skill. That's a skill that none of us are taught. If anything, we're modeled by our parents is how not to do that thing,
Yep.
not
Yep.
how to do it,
Yeah.
right?
I
So,
I tried to prep a conversation that I know is going to be heavy.
uh,
One of my strategies was, if we're going to talk about something I know is going to be, whether it's a boundary I need to express or something we need to discuss that's going to be a passionate conversation. I'll prep it in terms of let her know it's coming, probably get
mm,
dinner, something that we enjoy, do it beforehand, and then set it up before the conversation. Hey, it's probably going to be a passionate conversation. So we
mm,
are going into it already knowing this is going to
mm,
be a delicate conversation to be had.
mhm,
So let's make sure phones are away. We're present. We're with
yeah,
each other and we're ready to
good,
take on this conversation. Because
yeah,
I could say from a man's perspective, it's unfortunate when you feel as though a conversation just ambushes you and comes out of
right,
nowhere.
sure, absolutely, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Just when
and
you mentioned
again,
skills, that's something I thought of.
that is a skill, how to enter into a difficult conversation in a way that sets you up for success, rather than programs in failure right away.
Mhm.
And again, it is a skill. And also, what often works for one man won't work for another. We all have to kind of, I believe in experimenting, with new skills, new practices, new and what might work for my wife might not work for your wife, Ted, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, again, every relationship has to find its own way. It's a complex interweaving of two different worlds and cultures and family systems and dynamics and expectations and ambition. I mean, it's shit. This shit's messy.
Hmm.
And so I think, just we men got to give ourselves some grace. And but if you're, if you ask yourself that question, it's one of the questions that I pose, in that essay, which is in my book, Choose Your Everyday Reliever, is ask yourself, why are you choosing this person?
Hmm.
Why am I choosing this person today? And not that I'm a big proponent of knowing why. Why is a slippery slope? The answer could be different on different days. But if you can't come up with an answer consistently, like I don't know why, then that's something to really look at. If you don't know your why for why you're in a relationship, and there can be all kinds of answers to that. There's not a right answer and a wrong answer, I would say. There's just, is it an answer that works for you? But if you don't
Hmm.
have it, like, why? What is the purpose? Why am I doing this? I remember not asking, I remember hearing a young man at the beginning of, he was single. I think he was maybe in his late 20s. And he shared with me, I talk with all my friends that are in relationships. They all seem to be miserable. Why the hell should I be aiming to be in a relationship? And I said to him, you know what? That is a fantastic question. And until you figure out the answer to that, I agree with you. You probably shouldn't be aiming to be in a relationship,
Yeah.
because it isn't going
Yeah.
to be easy. It is going to be it there's a confrontation with yourself that is going to have to happen at some point. And if you don't know why you're doing this, you're going to bail. Even if you stay physically, you'll do what I did. You'll stay physically, but you'll bail energetically. And it'll just become
Hmm.
a self fulfilling prophecy. Yep. See, I knew it was hard. That's why I didn't fully commit to this relationship, because I knew it was going to be hard. Yeah, but part of the reason it was hard is because you didn't fully commit, and on and on and on and on. So get that question. Think about that. That's a Till you can really answer that question, relationship's going to be a struggle on a whole other level.
Yeah, and it's almost like their view of the difficultness means they're not connected into the fruits of the labor in the first place. I have
Sure.
friends who have
Yeah.
really nice cars and they take the car, they wash this thing with their hands,
Mhm.
Brian. They do the wax and they spend hours taking care of this clean car. This is make, and I just could take mine to the wash if I want to, and it's fine. And I'm not too
Yeah.
worried about, oh, no, no, no. This is the only wax I could use, the only gas I could put in. And I could, on the outside looking in, see their love for that car and say, that looks miserable. Why
Yeah.
do it? Well, they do
Yeah.
it because they've attached themselves to what the car gives them in return for the work that they put in. So they don't see it as hard, they see it as worth it.
And by the way, a car, for the most part, if it poses a problem, you can pretty much find a solution. It's a mechanical thing.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to betray my complete ignorance of cars, but you gotta. It's making a knocking sound. Okay, that's a piston. Let's get so it's probably not that at all. I apologize to any car aficionados immediately. Please forgive me, but it's like, but relationships don't work that way necessarily. Something's going on. I mean, on some level there are similar skills. Being curious, man. One of the most important skills in relationship is curiosity. It's being willing to be curious. Same way, like your car, you hear a noise knocking. Okay, well, you ask yourself, well, what might that be? What's going on? Let's get curious. Let me explore. We tend to not do that in relationships. We tend to just immediately assume we got no problems here. A lot of us men, we tend to think the bills are paid. We got a roof over our head. Nobody's starving. I don't have to call the police for anything. House ain't on fire. Kids ain't bleeding. We got no problems. Why are you upset? Why are we fighting? We got no, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
we're completely missing something in that assumption.
yeah, like, we're oblivious to some aspect that we need to correct and
Something,
maybe get a spotlight on.
something.
Uh,
That's
A
right.
lot of your work touches on, and we mentioned it before too, the personal growth aspect, but also that masculinity and the healthy masculinity that we could show up with in relationships. Touch on how that's a major theme in your work and how we could integrate our personal development and our masculinity to experience a better relationship with our partners.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, I think we're going through an interesting exploration, yeah, about identity. I mean, that's just a big question in the culture, identity. And there's a lot of, in the culture wars right now, there's a lot of people that just want to say it's not a question. This is what a man is, this is what a woman is, and a woman does that, and a man does this, and we just want to rush to an answer, and we want to rely on what was an answer 500 years ago. And that what a man does today should be what a man was 500 years ago or 50 years. And look, I'm not here to say who's right or who's wrong in that conversation, but I do think that in the same way that every couple has to find their own way, what works for one couple won't work for another. I think every man has to find his own way, has to explore that question. What does it really mean to me to be a man? What does that mean to me? I mean, in the work that I do, Ted. So I do men's work. That's a major part of. I coach couples and I do men's work. I lead men's groups. And one of the things that I must stand for is I actually, what's the to enter my work? What's the requirement? You just have to identify as a man. That's it. If you identify
Yeah.
as a man, like honestly, legitimately, not because you're trying to fuck with me and just trying to get in the, but if you genuinely hold yourself, I don't. You're welcome. Then let's explore that because we are exploring what does it mean to be a man. And
Mhm.
um, I think there are patterns, there are primal drives, and I think this word power is men have an interesting relationship with power, and a lot of men in our modern culture, I think, are very disconnected from power. We don't know where to
Mhm.
put our power. The places that we may have put our power in the past, it's society. It doesn't say that that's okay anymore. Um, I think we're so a lot of men are a lot of men fall into the nice guy trap, right? And what is a nice guy? But a nice guy who is someone who really doesn't have a backbone. He just doesn't want to rock the boat, doesn't want to be cast out of whatever group or relationship he's in. So he just goes along with whatever. No
Yeah.
power in that man. And I think one of the really important aspects of men's work is coming into right relationship with power. Right? It's like exploring that same paradox we talked about in creating a container. What does it mean to be both safe and dangerous at the same time?
Mm.
Right. And I think I think that's a core part of redefining or defining a healthy masculinity is we've a lot of culture wants to put us in one of those two boxes. Either you're completely safe or you're just dangerous. Right. And I think a lot of men we get caught in the middle of, well, I don't want to be canceled or whatever the thing is I'm afraid of. So I'm going to play it. I'm going to be completely safe. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, and that's not what culture really needs. On the other hand, though, the guy that's like fuck everybody, fuck that, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I do, and because that's what a man does. Well, you know what? Culture doesn't need that either. We don't. So what I believe we need is again, how do we fuse safety and how do we be both men that are safe but also dangerous in the right ways? What
Mhm.
does that mean? I mean, that's again, that's an inquiry, man. That's a question to be lived, not necessarily just a
Yeah.
conclusion to be arrived at, and then got it all figured out from there on out. It's like I think a vital art of manhood is being able to tune in to what does the moment require. What does this
Ooh.
moment require of me? How can I show up in this moment given all the things I'm able to see and feel into. I mean, you know, we talk a lot about, men aren't sensitive. That's actually that's absolutely incorrect. Men are profoundly sensitive. It is just that we have armored up around our sensitivity because we were made fun of at a young age for our sensitivity. We were taught again, no pain, no gain. Don't trust your feelings, fuck your feelings,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Right? Again, all of that is just served to disconnect us from ourselves, from our power, from the world around us. So anyway, man, I'm just kind of rambling on a whole bunch of things here, but that's what that
But you
question elicited from me.
Yeah. Hey, you left a lot of good gems, and I took a whole bunch of notes down. And I hate that we come up on our time because I feel as though we hit the tip of the iceberg
Mm,
of really the descent work that you do with the men and the elevation that they get from it. But that's just a great excuse for our audience and the folks watching to connect with you, follow you, and get more of the work that you do, Brian. Even though we're in the same arena, in the same realm, I don't
yeah.
believe in the competition here because our mission is really reaching out to men. And like you said, everyone finding their own way. You might resonate more with some of our audience than how my work
Mhm.
resonates. So I don't want to rob our audience from the gifts that you provide or you from having the opportunity to provide those gifts. So, what are the
Thank
links and some of the social channels that folks can connect with
you.
you on?
Yeah. Yeah. So, likewise, Ted, we need an army of men doing this work, right? So,
Correct.
I'm with you in that 100%, man. The best place to find me is just my website, Brian Reeves, and it's Brian with a Y. That's really important. Bryan Reeves, Reeves.com. I'm also on all social media, Instagram, Brian Reeves Insight. My relationship program is elevaterelationship.com. Uh, but again, you can find that at brianreeves.com. You can find my year long, if you want to, my year long Elevate 2025. We start in January, right around the corner. We've only got 10 spots for that. You can find a link to that on my website, brianreeves.com/elevate. That's one stop shop in brianreeves.com is really the place to connect with me.
I love that. And I'll have the link in the show notes in the description below for anybody watching on
Thank
YouTube. And last question, it's usually the heaviest
you.
one. It's what's something that you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Well, I mean, there's a million things, but I guess the thing that comes to me uh, first is growing up with two fathers, a dad and a stepdad, and seeing how they bead men in the light in the world. And without going into too many specifics, I basically saw the dichotomy, the polarity of a man is either weak and impotent and a pushover and a or he's a tyrant and he's terrifying and he's angry and he's to be feared. That was my belief that, choose between those. And everything in my body was like, that doesn't feel like a good choice. And so I think my lifelong journey as a man has been reconciling. One was so safe as to be almost unworthy of respect because I can just push this fucker over. He's not gonna have my back. He can't have my back. He doesn't even have his own back. Or tyrants like, oh my God, like all I'm gonna do is war with this one. And so I think, my lifelong journey has been fusing again, safety and danger, learning how I want to be a safe man, but I also need the world around me to know that if you fuck with me, I will kill you on some level. If you come into my space, I need you to know that I have capacity to say back off and and
Yeah.
and to follow through with whatever needs to happen. Again, I'm not trying again, safety and danger, man. It's a moment by moment inquiry. So yeah, I mean, those two men really shaped me in ways beautiful and awful.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Brian, because that is real. And a lot of us gather the evidence of manhood by those closest to us and the examples
Yeah.
that we saw growing up. And when we grow up ourselves, we then have to decide the type of man we choose to be, and the element of safety and danger is so very important because I do tap into that balance as well, forever toting it, not being too safe, not being too dangerous, but also, as you mentioned, understand the calm and the chaos. Often people are afraid of the danger because they don't see the utility of it until it's needed. And having the
Right.
mindset of like, hey, I'm dangerous and I'm capable of X, there's no need for it here. So you don't have to worry about it. But if
Exactly.
anything were to happen, just trust and understand that I am prepared for the situation, even though I don't hope
Exactly.
for the situation. So I
Exactly.
love
And
it.
that also communicates to my wife, that communicates to my friends. Like it also means I'm capable of having your back. It's not just words I'm speaking. Like if shit goes down, I'm with you. Again, just trust and safety and trust. So yeah, man, great
Quick,
question.
qu-
I'm
quick story. It is funny
yeah,
because you mentioned just having your back, and I joke with my friends all the time about secret agent, and me and my buddy we call ourselves black and mild as secret agents. But long story short, we're in a large crowd. Lazy lady loses consciousness. We're administering first aid. There's a nurse and taking care of her, and we're fanning her down. Like the family's trying to fan her down and keep her cool. Look to my buddy. He says, "Do we need a cold compress?" We're at a sporting arena. We're in a game.
uh,
Like, dude,
uh,
where like medics haven't gotten there. The medic that got there doesn't have the equipment. I said, cold compress. I said, yes, but do we have one? He looked at me, said, I can make one.
uh,
So he takes his t-shirt off underneath the jersey. We're pouring water on it from our water bottles, and
yeah,
this guy had a mixed drink with like tequila and something in it. And he's like, "What's in your drink?" He's like, "I don't care, tequila or whatnot." He's like, "No, give me the ice." And we got the
yeah,
ice, and we had this cold compress for a lady. But you mentioned like in an arena where everyone's standing there not knowing what to do. My friend and I
right,
were able
yeah,
to look and say, "This is what's needed right now. Let's just
yeah,
gather the
yeah,
equipment until the authorities can get the right ice pack." Um,
yeah. Love
that's
it.
kind of what
It's
I
beautiful.
gather when you meet.
Yeah, definitely. In that's right. What is required in this moment? Just this moment, right? Just like
Yeah.
live in that question. Oh man, that's game changing.
And then we did enjoy the rest of the game, and the woman is okay for anybody worried about the outcome. But this has been a fantastic episode. Former U.S. Air Force captain, internationally renowned author, relationship coach, and men's coach, Brian Reeves. Thank you so much for your time, your service, and your expertise throughout this episode, man. We really appreciate it.
Ted, I have really enjoyed this with you. Thank you for having me on, man. You're a great host, and it's been a great conversation. I've appreciated it.
Likewise, likewise. And I'm gonna really quick just recap some of the gems you left along the way. I know folks are driving, working out, cleaning while listening, but descend in order to elevate. Talking about that inner work, going through your dark night of the soul, right? Working on yourself and how you show up, helping men have real conversations. A lot of us as guys have a phone full of contacts, but nobody to call when the things and the shit in life gets real. This is what we are talking about, is having relationships and having folks that we can contact, not just for the good days, but for the bad days as well. Life is cyclical. You have seasons, good times, bad times. And if you're not in the good times or the bad times, it's the spring or fall. You're either heading in or out. And that's just the way it goes. We're judged on our performance. And because of that, we do believe that setbacks and conflicts impact our value and our worth. And unfortunately, that's not true when it comes to relationships. So we need to pay close attention to that. Speaking of playing close attention, whenever we're in the hard times and we're having a hard day, if life's kicking us in the nuts like it's been doing to Brian today, look, own, acknowledge, trusted receiver. Look at it, own it, acknowledge it, and then find someone trusted that you could share it with. So you're not carrying the load by yourself. Because as Brian also said, it's not the weight that you carry, it's how you carry it. Finding a container with other men that you can be in that is safe so you can get dangerous and really focus on what matters and do the work that's needed, and understand that it's okay for relationships to be messy. It's not in the mess, it's in the repair that the value is found. And dude, you're not alone. We said that before. And of course, um, learn some conflict regulating skills, establish boundaries, learn how to communicate, and also choose her each and every single day. Guys, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for making it to the end with us. Make sure you hit Brian with the follow, and make sure that you hit us with the like, the subscribe, share this, and leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing. It's the only way we can improve, and the algorithm loves it as well. So that's a selfish plug for us to help us keep this thing going and give you guys a great new episode each and every single week. But as we always say at the end, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain, but you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.